Imagine waking up tomorrow morning, you check your phone, and the first notification you see reads, "Nuclear exchange confirmed between major world powers." In that moment, everything you know changes forever. This isn't a movie trailer. This isn't some far-off dystopian fantasy. The scenario I just described has nearly happened multiple times. And right now, as you're watching this video, the conditions for World War III are more present than they've been in decades. Maybe ever. But here's the thing most people don't realize. If this war actually kicks off, there are no winners. None. Zero. Every nation that participates loses. Every nation that doesn't participate also loses. And by the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly why that statement isn't hyperbole. It's mathematical certainty. Now, if stories like this fascinate you, if you want to understand the forces shaping our world that nobody talks about at dinner, you're in the right place. Hit that subscribe button right now. Tap the notification bell so you don't miss videos like this. Because I promise you, the stuff we cover on this channel will change how you see everything. Seriously. One click, and you're part of this community. Alright, let's get into it. To understand why World War III would produce no winners, we first need to understand what this war would actually look like. And I need to tell you right now, it looks nothing like the wars your grandparents fought. Nothing like the movies. Nothing like the video games. World War I was fought in trenches, millions of young men charging across muddy fields into machine gun fire. It was brutal. It was slow. And it killed 17 million people over 4 years. World War II expanded the battlefield. Tanks rolled across continents. Bombers darkened the skies. Naval fleets clashed across oceans, and at the very end, 2 atomic bombs dropped on Japan showed humanity a terrifying glimpse of what was possible. That war killed between 70 and 85 million people, more than 3% of the entire world population at the time. But here's what's absolutely critical to understand. Those wars, as devastating as they were, had clear endings, clear winners, clear losers. Territory was gained and lost. Treaties were signed. Nations rebuilt. The world moved on. World War III does not follow that pattern. The difference comes down to 3 words that change everything. Nuclear, mutual, assured, destruction, MEDI as the strategists call it. And trust me, the acronym is appropriate. Here's how it works in simple terms. The major powers, the United States, Russia, China, and to lesser extents the United Kingdom, France, India, Pakistan, Israel, and North Korea, all possess nuclear weapons. Some of them possess thousands. Russia alone has approximately 5,900 nuclear warheads. The United States has around 5,500, and many of these weapons are thousands of times more powerful than the bombs dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Now, these nations have positioned their nuclear forces in a specific way. Submarines patrol the oceans carrying missiles. Underground silos sit ready across remote territories. Bombers remain on alert at all times. The idea is simple. If you attack us with nuclear weapons, we will have enough surviving forces to completely destroy you in response. Even if you strike first. Even if you hit us with everything you've got. This is called second strike capability, and it's why direct warfare between nuclear powers has been avoided since 1945. Because everyone knows, if you start this fight, nobody survives it. But here's where things get really interesting and really terrifying. Modern military strategists have run the numbers. They've simulated what would happen if a nuclear war actually broke out between the United States and Russia. And the results are, there's no other word for it, apocalyptic. Within the first 90 minutes of a full-scale nuclear exchange, estimates suggest that approximately 100 million people would be dead. not injured. Dead. Cities like New York, Los Angeles, Washington, D.C., Moscow, St. Petersburg, London, and potentially dozens of others would simply cease to exist. The infrastructure that makes modern civilization possible, power grids, water treatment, hospitals, communication networks, would be gone. And that's just day one. What comes next is something called nuclear winter. When nuclear weapons detonate over cities, they don't just destroy buildings. They ignite massive firestorms. These fires send millions of tons of soot and debris into the upper atmosphere. This blocks out sunlight. Temperatures across the planet drop dramatically. Crops fail. Billions of people who weren't anywhere near the explosions begin to starve. Recent studies from Rutgers University suggest that a full-scale nuclear war could kill up to 5 billion people within 2 years. Not from the bombs themselves. From the collapse of the global food system. 5 billion people. Let that sink in for a moment. And here's the mini cliffhanger I promised you. The scenario I just described. That's if everything goes according to the worst-case models. But there's something even scarier. Something most people haven't thought about. What if World War III doesn't start with a nuclear exchange? What if it starts small? Stay with me here because this is where it gets real. Most military experts don't actually believe that World War III would begin with someone pressing the nuclear button first. That's the Hollywood version. The reality is both more complicated and in some ways more likely. The most probable trigger for World War III is something called escalation. It starts with a conventional conflict. Maybe a skirmish in the South China Sea. Maybe an incident on the border between NATO and Russia. Maybe something in the Middle East that spirals out of control. At first, it looks manageable. Nations issue warnings. Diplomats scramble. But then something goes wrong. A ship is sunk. A plane is shot down. Soldiers from one country kill soldiers from another. And suddenly, both sides feel they cannot back down without looking weak. This is the escalation trap. And history shows us that once nations fall into it, they rarely find their way out peacefully. Think about World War I for a moment. Nobody in June of 1914 woke up wanting a global war. A single assassination in Sarajevo triggered a chain of alliances, ultimatums, and mobilizations that within weeks had dragged all the major powers of Europe into the bloodiest conflict the world had ever seen. The leaders of Europe stumbled into that war. They didn't plan it. They didn't want it, but once the machine started moving, nobody could stop it. Now imagine that same dynamic, but with nuclear weapons waiting at the end of the escalation ladder. Let me walk you through a scenario that military strategists actually game regularly. It's 2027. Tensions between the United States and China over Taiwan have reached a breaking point. China launches an invasion. They believe, perhaps correctly, that the United States won't risk a major war over a small island nation. But they miscalculate. The United States sends carrier groups to the region. China warns them to stay away. A missile is launched. Maybe by accident, maybe on purpose, maybe by a rogue commander. An American aircraft carrier is hit. Thousands of sailors die in minutes. Now the United States faces an impossible choice. Back down and accept the loss, appearing weak to the entire world. Or retaliate. Escalate. They choose to retaliate. American forces sink Chinese naval vessels. Chinese forces respond by striking American bases in Japan and Guam. Japan is now in the war. Australia is now in the war. Within weeks, you have a full-scale conventional war between major world powers. And here's the terrifying question that keeps defense analysts up at night. At what point does the losing side decide that using a tactical nuclear weapon is better than accepting defeat? Because someone will be losing. Wars don't stay balanced forever. And nuclear weapons exist precisely because they're the ultimate trump card. They're the weapon you use when you have no other options left. But once one side uses a nuclear weapon, even a small one, even a tactical one designed just to hit a military target, the other side has to respond. Because if they don't, they're signaling that nuclear aggression is acceptable, that you can get away with it. So they respond with their own nuclear strike. And now you're not in a conventional war anymore. You're in a nuclear war. And once that threshold is crossed, history suggests it's almost impossible to climb back down. This is what analysts call the nuclear ladder, and every rung you climb makes the next step up more likely. Now let me tell you about the second major dimension of World War III that most people don't consider. And honestly, this might be the part that affects you personally far sooner than any nuclear weapon. Cyber warfare. Before the first missile is launched, before the first soldier crosses a border, World War III would almost certainly begin in the digital realm, and the battlefield is everywhere, including your home, your phone, your bank account. Modern nations don't just have nuclear arsenals, they have cyber arsenals. Teams of thousands of highly trained hackers working for military and intelligence agencies. Their targets aren't just enemy governments and militaries. Their targets are everything that makes modern society function. Power grids, water treatment facilities, hospitals, banking systems, traffic control, air traffic control, supply chain logistics, the internet itself. In 2021, a ransomware attack on the Colonial Pipeline shut down fuel supplies across the entire eastern United States for nearly a week. That was criminals. Imagine what a nation, state with unlimited resources could do if they weren't just looking for ransom money, if they were looking to cause maximum chaos. Military simulations of cyber attacks on the American power grid suggest that a coordinated strike could leave large portions of the country without electricity for months. Not days, months. And here's the thing about modern society. We don't do well without electricity for months. No electricity means no refrigeration. Food spoils within days. No electricity means no gas pumps working. Transportation stops. No electricity means no water treatment. People start dying of preventable diseases. Hospitals can run on backup generators for a while, but those generators need fuel. And without transportation, fuel doesn't arrive. The estimates are grim. A prolonged grid down scenario in the United States could result in millions of deaths within the first year. Not from enemy action, just from the collapse of the systems that keep us alive. And here's the thing about cyber warfare that makes it particularly dangerous in the context of escalation. Attribution is hard. When a missile launches from a specific location, you know where it came from. When a cyber attack cripples your infrastructure, proving who did it takes time, and mistakes can be made. What if a devastating cyber attack is misattributed? What if a nation retaliates against the wrong enemy? What if someone stages an attack specifically to look like it came from a rival power? This is the fog of war in the digital age, and it makes an already dangerous situation even more unpredictable. But wait, there's another dimension to this that might be the most disturbing of all: economic warfare. We live in a globally interconnected economy in a way that previous generations couldn't have imagined. Your phone contains components manufactured in a dozen different countries. The food on your plate might have traveled thousands of miles. The money in your bank account is just numbers in a computer, connected to a vast network of international financial systems. This interconnection has brought incredible prosperity, but it's also created incredible vulnerability. In a World War III scenario, economic warfare would be deployed immediately. Sanctions on a scale we've never seen. seizure of foreign assets, blocking of international payment systems. And here's what that means in practical terms. If you thought supply chain disruptions during the pandemic were bad, imagine them multiplied by 100. Medications that your life depends on, manufactured overseas, simply don't arrive. Computer chips needed to build everything from cars to medical equipment become unavailable. Energy prices spike to levels that make heating your home unaffordable. And unlike a nuclear strike, which affects specific areas, economic warfare affects everyone simultaneously. There's nowhere to evacuate to. No bunker that protects you from the shelves being empty. The global economy is a web. And in World War III, everyone starts cutting the strands. Even the nations doing the cutting suffer when the web collapses. This is why I titled this video A War with No Winners. Because even the nation that wins World War III, whatever that even means, inherits a devastated planet, a collapsed global economy, a traumatized and decimated population, contaminated farmland, destroyed infrastructure, and the knowledge that they helped bring about the greatest catastrophe in human history. Victory in World War III looks like standing in the rubble of everything humanity built and calling yourself the king. Now, I want to talk about something that might actually give you a sliver of hope. Because I don't want to leave you feeling completely hopeless. That's not the point of this video. The point is to understand. Because when you understand, you can prepare. You can make informed decisions. You can participate in the conversations that shape policy. And you can appreciate just how valuable peace actually is. Throughout the Cold War, we came closer to nuclear annihilation than most people realize. There's a man named Vasily Arkhipov who you've probably never heard of. In 1962, during the Cuban Missile Crisis, he was a Soviet submarine officer. His submarine was being depth-charged by American destroyers. The captain believed they were under attack and wanted to launch a nuclear torpedo. The political officer agreed, but protocol required all 3 senior officers to authorize a nuclear launch. And Arkhipov refused. One man, one decision, possibly saved hundreds of millions of lives. There's another man named Stanislav Petrov. In 1983, he was on duty at a Soviet early warning station when the computers indicated that the United States had launched 5 nuclear missiles at the Soviet Union. Protocol demanded that he report this to his superiors immediately, which would have triggered a retaliatory launch. Instead, Petrov trusted his instincts. He judged it a false alarm. He was right. A software error had misinterpreted sunlight reflecting off clouds as missile launches. One man, one decision, possibly saved civilization. What these stories tell us is that even in the most dangerous moments, even when the systems seem designed for catastrophe, human judgment and human courage can make the difference. The end of the world is not inevitable. It never has been. But relying on the right person being in the right place at the right time is a terrible strategy. We need better systems, better communication between potential adversaries, better crisis management protocols, more awareness among ordinary citizens about what's actually at stake. Because here's the truth that I want you to carry with you after this video. The people making decisions about war and peace are not always the wisest among us. They're not always the most informed. They're politicians and generals operating under pressure, with incomplete information, often with their own biases and blind spots. And the decisions they make affect every single one of us. When tensions rise between nations, when the saber rattling gets loud, when politicians talk tough about adversaries, they're playing with fire, and the fire can burn out of control faster than anyone expects. The Cuban Missile Crisis lasted 13 days. 13 days during which human civilization genuinely hung in the balance. And it was resolved not through strength or victory, but through negotiation, through back-channel communication, through both sides deciding that avoiding war was more important than winning the immediate confrontation. That's the lesson. That's the only path through. Now let me bring this back to you, because you're probably wondering what any of this means for your life right now, today. First, I want you to understand that awareness is power. The fact that you're watching this video, that you're educating yourself about these dynamics, makes you part of the solution. An informed citizenry is the best check on reckless leadership. When enough people understand the stakes, it becomes harder for politicians to treat war like a game. Second, preparedness isn't paranoia. I'm not saying you need to build a bunker in your backyard, but having some basic emergency supplies, understanding your local emergency protocols, knowing where your family would meet if communications went down. These aren't crazy prepper fantasies. They're reasonable precautions in an uncertain world. Third, vote. Engage with the political process. Support leaders who understand diplomacy, who value alliances, who see war as a last resort rather than a first option. Your voice matters more than you think. Fourth, stay connected to your community. The divisions within our own society, the tribalism, the demonization of fellow citizens who think differently. These weaknesses make us more vulnerable to external threats. A united nation is a stronger nation. And finding common ground with people you disagree with is actually a national security issue. And finally, don't let fear consume you. The goal of this video isn't to make you live in terror. It's to make you informed. There have been moments throughout history when war seemed inevitable and peace prevailed. There's nothing predetermined about catastrophe. Every day that the world avoids this war is a day that makes the next day more possible. We're all in this together. Literally everyone on the planet. The boundaries on maps don't mean much when we're talking about nuclear fallout or collapsed food systems. Our fates are linked in ways that previous generations couldn't have imagined. And maybe, just maybe, that shared fate is the key to avoiding the worst. Because once you truly understand that there are no winners in World War III, that everyone loses, that no bunker is deep enough and no island is remote enough to escape the consequences, maybe that changes how we approach conflict altogether. The Cold War taught us something important. Two superpowers, armed with enough weapons to destroy civilization many times over, managed to avoid direct conflict for nearly 50 years. Not because they liked each other, not because they agreed on anything, but because they understood that the alternative was unthinkable. That lesson needs to be remembered, and it needs to be applied to the new challenges of our era. China's rise, Russia's grievances, regional conflicts that could spiral, the proliferation of nuclear weapons to more nations, the chaos of cyber warfare. None of this is simple, but all of it is manageable if we keep one truth firmly in mind. There are no winners in World War III. The only winning move is not to play. Now, before I let you go, I want to know what you think. What keeps you up at night when you think about global conflict? Is there a particular scenario that worries you most? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because I genuinely read every single one. And the discussions on this channel are incredible. You bring perspectives I never considered. I learn from you just as much as you learn from these videos. Also, if this video opened your eyes, if it gave you information you hadn't thought about before, do me a favor. Share it. Send it to someone who needs to hear this. Send it to a friend, a family member, that person you always debate politics with. The more people who understand these dynamics, the better off we all are. Seriously, Hit that share button. And if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? We dive deep into topics like this every single week. The stuff that actually matters. The stuff that shapes our world. One click and you're part of this community. We're building something special here, and I want you along for the ride. Thank you for watching. Thank you for thinking critically about the world. And remember, in a world full of people looking for winners and losers, sometimes the real wisdom is understanding when the only way to win is to make sure the game never starts. I'll see you in the next one. Stay safe out there.